All right, everyone, welcome back to the much anticipated return, I guess. Well, I don't know, much anticipated. To return to the show, I'm Robert Falcon. This is my son Jacob, as everybody knows, and it's been a while since we last talked a little bit about sports. So we're not going to really reflect and see what we've missed in the time that we've been away. But football's back, NBA's not. Baseball's in the dog days of summer. A few faces changing places, and a couple of Ohio State last week we left was Ohio State scandal was in full effect, and
Miami's in a world of trouble.
Since then it's the Miami Hurricanes have pretty much become the talk of really just the sports world period. Not just college football or college sports in general, but we're going to start off the NFL. We'll do a little NFL here, and we're going to talk in depth. The NFL starts in a couple weeks. We've already had a couple meaningless preseason games, and had an idea or had a chance to look at certain guys: Cam Newton,
Clausen,
Gabbert, Tebow. There's a lot of the rookies and some guys changing names or changing teams. But first and foremost, I'm just going to come right out of the box, and we'll go before we delve into who's where and what we think and blah 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 blah. We'll go. We'll do some predictions. We'll do some dark horses. We'll do some postseason awards and a few things like that, and then we'll talk about what's important, I guess, about who's where and why and what we think. I will. I'll come out and say I'll go AFC first, and I got every year I do it, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to pick the San Diego Chargers to win the West. There's nobody that's even close to their talent in that division. Not Kansas City, not Oakland, nobody. It's San Diego in the West, and I got Pittsburgh, who has looked pretty sharp, preseason or not. And when you're looking that sharp this early, somebody needs to take notice. And Pittsburgh will take the Central, or the North. I'm sorry, let's go old school, saying Central. I'm going to have the Texans taking the South, and the Patriots taking the East.
Well,
and Baltimore, and my dark horse team in the AFC, I have the Cleveland Browns making the other wild card, and I have New England coming out of the AFC. It was tough. Pittsburgh's looking really good, but they just have never been able to put it together the last few years, back-to-back years, and so that's how my AFC is going to shake out. And of course, I'm going to go into it a little bit more, but that's how my AFC will shake out. If you want to go touch on your AFC, feel free.
I do think the Chiefs are actually going to win that division. I just don't think the Chargers. They never bring it. They never, every year, like you said, you pick them every year, and they disappoint every year. The only year they were really good, Rivers tore his ACL in the AFC Championship and lost to the Patriots. I think the Patriots are going to win. No, I don't think the Patriots. I think the Jets are going to win that division.
I strongly disagree. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but go ahead.
And I think the Jaguars are going to win that division. The division's really weak. Manning being out for the first, who knows how long he's going to be out for.
Yeah. That's the first game.
And the Colts they're old. And the division's like the 49ers Rams division in the NFC. And I think the Steelers are going to win that division too. Their division, they're the best team probably in the AFC. And I think that the Ravens and the Patriots will be wild cards. And I think the Steelers are going to go to the Super Bowl again. I think they're going to go back.
Yeah, again, there's not much to argue in that, but the simple fact of the Jets, Cleveland. I'm going to go on my why now, and then we'll touch on the NFC in a little bit here. But I think Cleveland is slowly every year they've drafted well, and their defense is very underrated. They have two solid corners, and they just have some athletes on that side of the ball. Mike Holmgren, he knows how to build a winner. He did it in Seattle, did it in Green Bay, and he knows what he's doing. He's got the right people in place, and Colt McCoy has shown that he's an NFL-ready quarterback. Took a lot of flack for his the championship game against Bama.
Yeah.
When everybody thought he laid down, which I didn't. But he's coming into this a West Coast offense, which is perfect for him. It's mid-range, short to mid-range passes, which is what is suited right to Colt McCoy.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, they have Peyton Hillis,
Had a pretty good year last year.
the Muhammad, the Massaquoi, who's
yeah.
just a flat-out stud, and they still have Cribbs, who's electric, and so I mean that's my dark horse, and that's a team that they're in a tough division. They're thankfully they have Cincinnati twice for them, so that's 2 wins.
Yeah.
And I mean they've played Pittsburgh and Baltimore tough.
Oh,
That division plays each other tough all the time, but Indianapolis, they are old. Peyton Manning's on the downside of his career, and they have no running game whatsoever. The line isn't very good. Reggie Wayne's on the downside of his career.
Defense is just they're old.
Bob Sanders is gone, and whether he was injured all the time or not, he was the catalyst for that defense, and he's gone. So I mean, it's a change of the guard. I don't think Jacksonville's going to do it with a rookie quarterback. Gabbert will be the starter there, I think they'll compete because of the simple fact that it is a weak division.
Yeah.
Tennessee's rebuilding.
The Texans' defense isn't good,
And
that's why I didn't pick them. Their defense isn't good. That's why they weren't good last year. They gave up more points than they scored, and they scored a lot.
Well, it's more times than not you will lose if you do that. The West again. I think Matt Castle is going to come down to earth. I think he's solid, but you always see it. It happens every year. A team will come out of nowhere, win the division. They were usually playing a last place schedule or a weaker schedule because they didn't finish very well the year before. The Dolphins for a few years back are a perfect example. And every year you'll see a team will make the playoffs. That was they were a poor team the year before, make the playoffs, and I think the stats like 80% of the time they don't make it the next year. 80% of those teams don't come back.
Yeah.
And I think the Raiders are a good football team. I really do. Jason Campbell's horrible. They will not do anything with Jason Campbell as their quarterback. Or else if they had a different quarterback, I'd pick them.
They had a great running game.
A great running game and a solid defense. Well, they lost Asamoah, but one cornerback isn't going to break your defense. So I mean, San Diego's loaded, and Phillip Rivers is one of the best players in the league. And then you go to the East, and the Patriots just 14-2 last year, ended up losing the playoffs to the Jets. I think it's pretty much going to be about the same thing. 13-3, 14-2. The Jets, Mark Sanchez is not a very good quarterback, and their line's getting older. Thomas is not going to do what he did last year. They've lost some weapons on offense, and I just think that they're going to rely so much on their defense. You can't do that too often. I mean, the Ravens had to go in another direction to get Flacco, and if anybody's going to knock off the Patriots, I think a surprise team, I think it could be the Ravens too, because Flacco seemed to have turned the corner. He's becoming a leader. Biting back at riders and stuff, and I really like that. And they added Ricky Williams.
They did lose Heath,
Rice.
He's
been injured though,
and they lost Mason, who's always reliable for a month.
Yeah, Mason.
But they added
outstanding.
They still have Anquan Bolden, who's pretty good. So.
Yeah, so I mean, to touch on your AFC. I mean, I'm sitting here rambling. It's been a while, but that's the way I see it. The Colts, big story for me at the AFC is I don't think the Colts will make the playoffs for the first time in
since Manning's been his rookie year.
Since his rookie year, so that's like 12 years, I think. 98.
It's just a change in the time. They're old. Manning's, he's had neck surgery.
And they haven't really looked good the last couple of years.
That one year they got hot. This last MVP they got hot and won the last 10 games of the season or something like that.
Which he should have got MVP, but Chad Pennington should have got it that year.
But they're just old, and I just think the Steelers are better than everybody in the AFC.
Well, they're well coached. The franchise is just a great franchise.
The team is solid.
And Ben Roethlisberger's a stud. Like him or hate him, whatever you
Nothing
like.
against the Patriots.
You like him if he was on your team. That's all I have to say about Roethlisberger. I think he's outstanding. But the AFC is loaded, top to bottom, with the exception of the Bengals. The Bengals are horrible. Mike Brown is one of the worst owners in all of professional sports. Yeah. I know you can't let the nuts run the asylum, But when a guy has never complained for 10 years of his career, and I'm talking about Carson Palmer, and he just finally says, look, we've had a good run, trade me, or I'm going to retire. It's not like when Ochocinco or Chad Johnson, whatever the hell his name is now. It's not when he did it, like when he did it a few years back. Palmer asked once and said, I'm going to do it, trade me, or I'm going to retire. Then, all this time, if you paid attention on the internet and the paper or whatever, Mike Brown has just continuously gone over, bashed him for this and said this derogatory thing about him and said this, and Carson Palmer has never said one single negative thing about Mike Brown or the Cincinnati Bengals organization. He just said, it's time for a change, and it is time for a change. And Mike Brown's going to come out and say, he signed a contract. And I think Tony Kornheiser said it, where he's like, the contract they signed isn't worth the price of the piece of paper that it's signed on. I mean, guys renegotiate their contracts year after year. They hold out. And then there's so many. So for him to throw that out there and say he made an obligation to the team, I think that's a horrible situation. I think he should have just traded him. There are some teams that want him, and there are some places that he wanted to go. The 49ers, the Dolphins, both our teams were two teams interested in. And it's just, teams just need, sometimes a player needs to change and a team needs to change. Then they went and drafted Dalton in the second round, which meant they were definitely moving forward.
So just trade him.
So trade him.
And they can get value out of him.
Yeah, at the time, they would have traded him at the time, they probably could have pulled the second round draft pick out of him. And, you look at the market, what some of these veteran quarterbacks are going for, second round draft pick is a pretty damn big deal.
Yeah.
But NFC, we'll move on over to the NFC. I'll let you start that ship since I ran the show over there in the AFC. So
NFC
you can start
West. Well, the Seahawks won it last year with a 8-8 record.
Mm-hmm.
7-9. That's right. They were 7-9. But I think I'm actually going to pick the 49ers to win the division because
shocker. Go ahead.
They have the weapons on. They added Braylon Edwards on offense to help with Smith. You have Crabtree, Davis, Edwards. They have Gore. And the defense is solid. Out of all four teams, there's can't really go wrong with who you're gonna pick. 7-9 winning the divisions. But I'm gonna go with them because I just think defensive wise, they're better than the other three teams in the division.
And offensively, they're absolutely loaded. There's talent top to bottom, except at quarterback.
The defending Super Bowl champion Packers, was that the NFC East or?
No, that's the North.
The North. Packers are going to win the division. I think they're going to be healthy this year for one. They're going to be healthy and they're coming off a Super Bowl year. They're riding high, so I just think they're gonna blow away that division. There's no one close except the Bears, but I don't think the Bears are as good as they were last year.
No, me neither.
And then the other division.
You have the South, and then you have the East.
Oh, I'm gonna pick the. I wanted to say the Cowboys, but I think the Eagles are gonna win that division. Adding Asamoah helps their defense a lot with Samuel Asamoah and then
absolutely
Rogers Cromartie also. That's just gonna be. It's been a tough defense. Samuel, first of all, he had 8 interceptions last year.
Yeah, so Samuel's always been good.
And then you add Asamoah, who no one wants to throw to his side anyway. So
I'll stop him when you're wrong. I agree 100%.
You pick your poison, Samuel or Asamoah. And then I think the Packers are going to do it again. I think they're going to come out of the NFC. And I think they're probably the best team in the league, actually, healthy wise. Their defense when they're on, and they were beat up last year. Woodson missed the whole second half of the Super Bowl,
yeah.
And they still won.
What about your the South? You got the South, the Falcons and the Saints in them. And then the NFC South.
The South. I think the Saints are going to win that division this year. I think the Falcons were. I don't want to say a fluke. They're a good team, but I don't think they're not 13-3 good. I don't think they're that good. I don't think Matt Ryan's that great.
Yeah.
I'm not sold on Matt Ryan. He didn't have to throw the ball last year. All he did, he headed it off a lot. Roddy White had a breakout year last year.
He threw it more last year than he did his rookie year when they made the playoffs when Turner rushed for like 1,700 yards. But and your two wild cards have the NFC.
The Atlanta Falcons will be a wild card team, and I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna say the Minnesota Vikings are going to be the other wild card team.
Really? Wow. Because
they're still good defensively. I mean, the reason they were Brett Favre was a sole reason why they were so putrid on offense. They lost Sidney Rice. That's one thing.
That's gonna hurt them.
They still have the best running back in the league, Adrian Peterson, and McNabb's. I mean, McNabb's not far from what he used to be in Philadelphia.
I hate McNabb, you know I do.
But he's a major upgrade from Favre.
All right, well, that little thing just kind of made me wonder if we're actually really related. But we'll go. I'm gonna go. I'll start West again, and I'm gonna disagree with you as far as saying it's you can pretty much pick anybody out of there because I think the Rams are a pretty good football team. The one thing that hurt them last year was Bradford was a rookie.
Yeah.
They lost some close games. They lost one to San Francisco earlier in the season, and I said, man, it's going to end up hurting them. And then they did, and if they would have won that game, they would have won the division. And I think the difference in that division is all four teams are I mean, some are at below average, some are average, and some are just a hair above average. But the big difference is you look at the most important position on the football team is a quarterback, and the best quarterback in that division is Sam Bradford.
And the Seahawks did lose Hasselbeck, and the Rams lost their best defensive player. He went to Washington.
OJ Otigwe.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, Sam Bradford is outstanding. I did not think he was going to be good. I dogged them for drafting him, and that was a good pick by them. And he's a stud. Steven Jackson, he's got a couple little injuries right now, but if he stays healthy, I think the Rams. I think the Rams win 9 games, 10 games, maybe even because the division's so weak, and they go to the playoffs. The only team that I see challenge them is San Francisco, with the talent that they have. But I'm not sold on. First of all, Jim Harbaugh as a coach, and I'm not sold as much as I like him as a person. He's a good kid. Alex Smith is just not. This is what 6th coordinator now in 6 years he's been in the league.
Yeah.
You can't learn anything like that if you're trying to learn something new every year. So I'm going to go with the Rams, and I think the Rams are a pretty good football team, and I like their coach and their youth and their energy, and they do have some talent. So I see the Rams going, over in the East, Philadelphia. I mean, it's definitely the on paper.
There
is the cream of the crop in the NFC East, and I see them definitely winning that division because I think the Redskins are garbage. Any team that has Rex Grossman and John Beck fighting for starting position at quarterback has no chance. And so we'll go with Philly there in the North. Green Bay Packers, the best team in football, I think, with the best player in football, and everybody coming back. Green Bay is going to run away with that division. And then the South, I'm going to go with Atlanta. They play great at home, and they do have a good running game, good pass rush, and a pretty good quarterback. And that's a good recipe for winning. And you don't win 13 games, being and I see what you're saying. They're 8-0, I believe, at home, which to me, I don't understand. But 5-3 on the road is still fine. They got throttled by Green Bay, but everybody did pretty much. It seemed like. And then the wild card teams, I'm going to go with Dallas. They're going to come back healthy. Romo will be back.
Yeah.
Jason Garrett's full year. They played well under him last year, and I think they pulled the wild card. And then my sleeper, my dark horse team that I've been pumping them up on Facebook for months. The Detroit Lions are going to make the playoffs. And they will be the other wild card team. New Orleans and Drew Brees will be on the outside looking in. They're going to miss Reggie Bush more than they think, even though he wasn't the main part of their offense. They're going to miss him more than they think because his versatility is going to be gone. And they have Mark Ingram, who's a bulldozer. He's a good running back. I like him. But he's not that Reggie Bush just added an element. Whether he touched the ball or not, people looked for him. And it opened things up for other players on the team. And they have no defense.
But Drew Brees is the type of quarterback like Brady was before. He didn't really need a good receiver. He's going to get the ball to you. No,
and that I agree. But their defense isn't that good, and that's what hurt New England last year.
It
was their defense.
Was young.
And the Jets were able to stay on the field. And the Jets frustrated Tom Brady. These guys these coordinators, they know what they're doing. So they catch up to offenses and vice versa. When the zone blitz was the big thing back in the day, nobody knew what to do with it, and they adapted to it. And so that's why it's always an evolving game. It's a great game to watch. But that is my NFC. The Packers coming out of the NFC, and I said New England out of the AFC. Packers win the Super Bowl. Sorry, Chili, I'm not going to change my pick. Packers coming out again, repeat, which is hard to do. So that's a ballsy pick by me. But I did pick the Bruins in hockey. I did pick the Mavs in basketball, and I picked the Phillies. And right now that pick's looking pretty good. So I'm on a roll. But I will. That's my Super Bowl pick and my prediction: the Packers winning. Real quick, some little notables. I wanted to say Reggie Bush was traded to Miami. That's a different to see. Kevin Cobb, starting quarterback out in Arizona. Braylon Edwards in San Francisco.
Plaxico Burress signed with the Jets.
Plaxico's with the New York Jets.
His last game he played was in 2008.
So, there's some faces changing names. Like I said, and then you got some Cam Newton. Will probably the starter for Carolina.
Started preseason game tonight.
I think it's a mistake. No, it was Friday against the Dolphins. He started. He wasn't bad. He wasn't great.
Tebow and Orton are fighting, but actually
Tebow was third string last night. Brady Quinn played outstanding.
On that real quick, I want to say something. I think that's a messed up situation with the three quarterbacks. Quinn's a young guy who hasn't had a chance yet.
And I like Brady. I loved him coming out of college.
If you want Orton to start, let him start and let Tebow learn under him. But at the same time, Broncos aren't going to be good next year.
No, they're horrible.
So just let Tebow learn. Let him play. Trade Orton. Get something out of him. Trade him to a team that needs him. Or trade Quinn.
I will say this. Orton will be gone. Orton will be gone. If he's not gone by the trade deadline this year, this will be his last year in Denver. I will say this. I think I might have been a little wrong on Tebow. I think he's going to be better than I thought. I don't think he'll be great, but
be solid.
I think he'll be. I mean, David Garrard has started in the freaking NFL for this long. Tim Tebow can. But that's and he's made some plays. He made a play against the Cowboys where he shoved a dude with one hand out of bounds. It was pretty impressive. You just don't see quarterbacks doing that. But MVP of the league this year, I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers. Comeback player of the year, Tony Romo. Rookie of the year, that's a tough one, but I'm going to say Gabbert. He's pretty much going to be the only rookie. Him or AJ Green. I'll go on a limb and say the guy from Cincinnati, AJ Green. Defensive player of the year. The great Ndamukong Suh will follow up his rookie year with the defensive player of the year as he carries that team to the playoffs. And coach of the year,
that's hard.
You guys said I'm gonna say Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett's gonna bring that team to the playoffs, and they're a good football team. The Cowboys, they're not bad. And if they, Des Bryant can stay out of trouble and Tony Romo can stay healthy, those guys can win some football games. So that's my take on the NFL, and I couldn't be more happy that it's back. And we'll talk more about college next week. But the main focus today I want to talk about was the NFL, and we'll touch on college because Virginia Tech, your boys, are something that needs to be talked about. They have a good chance of doing something this year. But that's all I have for the NFL. If you have something real quick before we take a break.
I think Tom Brady wins MVP again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think Tom Brady wins it for second year in a row. I think Ed Reed's going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year. I mean, I think he's the best safety in the league, aside from Polamalu. But
aside from Lucas Falcon.
What's it? Rookie of the Year? That's offensive, defensive, right?
Yeah, I didn't even say defense. I just said offense.
That's hard. I mean, there's so many guys out there.
And there's always somebody that seems to jump out at you. We're like, oh wow, that guy was 4th round draft.
I'm gonna say Mark Ingram will win.
That's not a bad choice either because he's gonna get a lot of carries.
Defensively, I have no idea. I didn't.
It's there's so many. Robert Quinn came out of North Carolina. He missed his year, and he's one that people need to take notice of.
Skins drafted a defensive lineman. Who was it?
I can't remember who the Skins drafted, but Fairley went to Detroit, and that's him and Ndamukong Suh are just going to be frightening to play.
I think Coach of the Year. I think the guy who's in Minnesota.
Frazier.
I think he's the one Coach of the Year this year. So I think they're going to make the playoffs.
And no Brett Favre this year, so that makes me happy.
I mean, you don't go from 13-3 to 6-10. Favre didn't do much the year to win 13-3.
That makes me happy. No Brett Favre this year, and so that's an enjoyable football season in itself right there. So we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We're going to talk a little bit about the death penalty. And not in the actual crime, in the justice system death penalty. We're going to talk some college football death penalty, so we'll be right back.